Hi, Ash. Welcome to Awaken and Align. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
I am so excited. Thank you for having me.
Yay! First,
Finally.
yes, well, I believe in divine timing, as all of the listeners know. I was introduced to Ash from the Work Podcast guest, Soraya Wilson. She recommended that I speak to Ash. You
My
also
sister,
did
I
a,
love.
yeah, you also did a collaboration together for the class.
Yes.
But first, I want to start with your origin story. And
Yes.
you can take this as far back as you want and as recent as you want, but I really want the people of the Awaken and Align community to truly understand where you came from and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I am born and raised in Buffalo, New York. I'm African American. I'm a Black woman, and I have been in New York now for about 10 years. I have been hustling my ass off in corporate, literally up until maybe a week ago. I just recently quit my corporate job. And which is woo, girl, I feel so free. You have no idea. It's so crazy. Just like finally like stepping into your truth. And I've been manifesting and wanting to just get out of corporate for so long, and no shade because it shaped me and
Mhm.
also made me the woman that I am today. But like it was just time, and like my soul was literally like every day just like knocking, and I always listen because that's even how I founded TherapArt, my nonprofit, is just listening to the voice and listening to my soul and listening to the calling. That's kind of how everything came about. And so I have been in corporate for the past 10 years. And I also, throughout that whole kind of corporate journey, I've been an executive assistant, and it was never enough. Like I always knew that there was something more. I always was like getting my hands in like different projects to do different things. But I realized that like I could create that, and I knew that there was something else inside of me. So anyways, kind of fast forward, I read the Keith Haring journals. I don't know if anyone has ever read those, but if you haven't, you should, because they're absolutely amazing. And Keith says this one thing, and he says, we never live in the same moment twice. We go through these different heights of happiness. And then it literally, like, when I mean the download came, and like through there, I was like, holy shit. Like it shook me to my core, because let me just go back a little bit. My brother has been a drug addict my entire life, most of my life, still is today. And I've always just wanted to save his life.
Mhm.
And I was like, how can I save his life? How can I raise enough money to send him to rehab? And then this whole idea was like, I'm going to do this like art installation, and I'm going to show my brother that we all feel different every single day. And then I just kept listening and listening and listening and listening. And through kind of like the discovery of trying to help my brother, I realized how much trauma I had from our relationship. And I just remember one day when I was reading the Keith Haring journals, I always listened to it actually with one song, which was No One Knows Me Like the Piano by Sampha. And I literally listened to it on repeat. And then one day I just like literally got up in my apartment and I just started moving, and something happened, and like someone entered my body, someone entered my soul, and I did not even recognize myself after. And so it was so cathartic and such a crazy experience for me that I actually started to record it, because I wanted to see what was actually happening. And then I just started to do it more and more and more. And then 4 years later, TherapArt was born, and now I work with kids who've been incarcerated, and I teach them movement and art therapy. And it's mind blowing when you just stick with something, never give up on yourself. Like, what can happen? Sorry, that was a really long.
No, I was like, don't stop.
Yeah.
Just that 2 minutes of your origin story is like, should we end here? That was so like inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks.
That
Yeah.
whole thing. Wow. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, did you want to continue? You
Yeah,
don't
I'll
have to
continue. Yeah. And so yeah, so I basically like I started just kind of like moving, and talk about synchronicity is then I met I went to a friend's house party actually on July 4th, and I met these two girls, these two Australian girls, and I was reading The Alchemist at the time, and my best friend Ellie and Madeline, who they're my best friends till this day, they were like, oh, like, what do you do? And I was like, yeah, I had this idea, like, I want to make a film, and like, I have this story, and I want to like help, people that are addicted to drugs. And, I had no idea at all, like, what was about to happen. And fast forward, we ended up making a film together. We met that next day. We made a film, and they really helped me like just drop into my soul and really tell the story that I was trying to tell, because it was so intrinsic that I didn't really know how to articulate what was happening. Because like something just takes over, and it was really hard for me to like explain that. And so we basically made this short film over the course of 3 years. And these 3 years, I'm growing up, I'm discovering, I'm going through life and just growing up and growing into myself. That was also during like my Saturn return, and like going through breakups, going through like probably the craziest shit I've ever gone through. And then we birthed really TherapArt then. And it's not until now, I would say about 4.5 years later, that I'm actually really doing the work, and I'm in it, and I'm fully in that power. And it's just it blows my mind. Like, I recently also won a grant not too long ago, and I had like a team of 8 people like present like my whole idea to me, and I literally like got off the phone and I was just crying, because it's just like it's crazy, because this was literally like a dream. Like, if I could just tell you that this was literally a dream that I had, and if you just listen, like, and you follow instructions, like, it will happen, and you will be shifted into exactly where you're supposed to be at exactly the right time. And I just have to pinch myself sometimes, because I can't believe I'm like even here talking to you about this, or like, it's mind blowing for me still. So yeah.
That is like your whole origin story leading up to you crafting this organization,
Yeah, TherapArt. Yeah.
TherapArt, and then listening to the signs and synchronicities and paying attention. That is how I feel we are meant to move through our experiences when we all have lived through trauma and continue to live through trauma. I really do believe that our spirits are so powerful, and when we can sit with and alchemize that pain into art and through community is actually the only thing we're meant to do, and then to make it into our dreams and to help other people, right?
Yeah, and I believe like TherapArt's mission is like everyone is their own artist. So like I'm happy to hold space and create this container for people, but I don't want you to come back to me forever, because it's literally within you. Hopefully I can give you the tools so you can see and you can grow and you can explore, but like it's all within ourselves. And I think through free form movement, through meditation, through art therapy, I just got my 200-hour Tibetan Buddhism meditation. I did my yoga teacher training over COVID. I went back to school during COVID. I just was like, how can I continue to like grow and expand, and it's really up to us. Like, no one else is controlling our lives except for us. No one else is controlling our reality. And when you realize that everything is kind of empty of a nature, I'm getting like Buddhist on you, but like when you realize that, then you realize that you have all the control. And you can just craft your own story. And then that's when it becomes fun. Now it's just like playground. Now it's just like, how can we have more fun? How can we create the life that we truly want to live? And I hope people do go through things, because if you don't go through things, then you don't come out on the other side, and you don't see the pattern, or not the pattern, the journey, of what you need to go through. Like, if my brother hasn't been a drug addict, then I wouldn't have the trauma that I have, or he wouldn't have the trauma, and this whole idea wouldn't have even come about. And I'm like, thank you, because this is what I was here to do. And I am 100% believer, like, everyone has a purpose. I love to serve people. That is like my soul calling. Like, I love to help people. I love to serve. I love to just ignite the fire within people because we all have it. And if you know that, then you're like, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you've ever thought about, like, you and your brother grew up in the same environment, in the same household, and how you were able to come out of this with this kind of understanding and he turned to drugs. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, totally. And I think I find it really interesting that two siblings can grow up in the same, household, and it can literally be like two different directions, and like I think that for maybe my brother, he had a different trauma that I had, maybe like growing up older, maybe he had different experiences that caused him then to use drugs. But now it's not even like about necessarily like getting high by any means. It's just a disease, you know what I mean? And so like when also you change your view and your perspective about that and know that it's just a disease and like it will get you, you know what I mean? But I think about it all the time, how one of us went this way, and like just it's really, I find it very, very interesting. But like I'm also happy because I hope that I can continue to help my brother and continue to inspire him and continue to support him. And that's what I was supposed to do. Like the story's already been written, and so for whatever reason our souls were already supposed to go through all of this, and like for the higher purpose and for the higher good. So I hope that we both can take these experiences, grow and forgive. And he has, and we've talked about it. And like making the film, like I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell my dad, I didn't tell my brother, and I just did it. And then when it was done, I let them see it. And I think that was just all healing for everyone, as well as a collective trauma of even being a family unit and all going through the same experience. Like we were all hurting in some way, shape, or form, so I hope that I can bring a little bit of light and healing to that for my family, and also my soul family and the family that I run into the street and the grocery store and everywhere else. I think it's just having that shared experience and knowing that you're not alone no matter what.
Do you watch Euphoria, or have you watched Euphoria?
It's pretty intense. Like
Oh,
the
intense. Well, I was just reminded of Gia and Rue.
exactly. Oh
They,
my,
they grew up in the same household, and
I barely could get through that episode, to be honest.
yeah,
Barely, but
it's
I did. And what that has been my life in past times, for sure.
yeah. Well, also, I won't get into the whole episode for people who don't even know what we're talking about, but I also found it, so I got to see the film. Thank you so much for sharing it with me, and I'll link
Welcome.
everything in the show notes for other people to
Yes.
be able to watch it. But what I found so liberating about it is like being vulnerable and honest about your experience. And according to Brene Brown's work on shame, is shame lives through when we don't speak about it.
Yep.
And I shared with you after I watched your film, like it made me cry because my mother's side of the family has addiction issues with alcoholism, and
Yeah.
both of her brothers passed away. And it is that thing where you want to be there for them, but it's a disease. And the more you enable, or the more that you allow them to give them the resources so that they can feed their addiction, is also not helping. But also at the
Exactly.
same time, you don't want to abandon them in any way. So it is this interesting dynamic with family members, and how when one person has an addiction, it is like a cancer that bleeds and metastasizes to the rest of the family members. So um, I think that watching that gave me a sense of like, wow, we can talk about this.
And there's so much more, to talk about. When you said shame, it reminded me, I wrote like a poem for my friend who has a nonprofit called Made of Millions that deals with like mental health. And we did this whole campaign, like shame shouldn't be a symptom. And I talked about when I had an abortion and like all of the trauma that is like also like lived in my body because of that. And like shame shouldn't be a symptom, and we need to talk about it, and like we need to own up. And what's happened to my brother doesn't have to be my pain. Like I've also gone through my other stuff, like my own stuff and my own trauma and things aside from that. And so I think it's just about like, why not be honest? Why? Like, I also felt like I've kept so much in for so long, and then it just builds in the body. And it's like, I don't know if anyone has ever read The Body Keeps the Score, but it's an amazing book about just how our body just stores trauma, how our body stores stress. And like, we need to just be open. Like, if you want to judge me because I had an abortion, then great, you know what I mean? But it's still my body, and I can't be shameful about it, and I can't hide about it anymore. You know, it's like, I felt like I did that for so many years, and then you just break at some point. You literally just break, and you're like, okay, I can't act anymore. I can't act like I'm okay. I can't put this act on for anyone.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, Resma Menikin's book, My Grandmother's Hands.
I haven't read
He,
it.
yeah, he studied under the author, I think it's Bezel van de Koch. He studied under that author, The Body Keeps the Score, but he takes a more racialized approach to trauma, being trauma informed, and how we hold trauma in our bodies.
Yeah.
And um, I want to go back to what you said about you weren't even able to really fully articulate the experiences that you went through, right? And moving your body and allowing it to come out that way and using art as a way to express yourself. I think that's why it's so important to do this kind of movement work and just getting
Yeah.
all of, because we don't even have words for some of the experiences that we've all experienced, right?
At all. And I think it's just like, I just I have like a 7-month in kind of installation that I'm doing at the studio in Williamsburg called Good Move. And each month we do a ceremony of you. And like, it's all about just really getting into your body and getting into your breath. And it's not about learning how to dance, because it's not dance, you know, it's about shaking. There's one, maybe 5 minutes where we're just screaming to the top of our lungs, you know what I mean? And then we kind of come down, and each different ceremony, we do a different art kind of therapy. So we'll write a letter to someone we may have hurt. We'll write a letter to our future self. We will do watercolors. We will do sculpting. Like, it's just about play, and it's just about, after releasing all of that stuff in your body, after meditating, after going through this like journey that we kind of take you on in class, then to come and just have this moment of play. And I always say that we always have to play. Like, we always have to be that 2-year-old. We always have to be that 3-year-old, because life isn't that serious. And when you continue to just like move through life a little bit lighter and invite more play into life, is when it becomes just fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always, you know, like, when's the last time we've colored? When's the last time we've painted with watercolors? Probably since we haven't been children, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so I think it's always interesting also to see what comes up after you do move all of that energy in your body, and you're crying and you're screaming, and then kind of to come down and see what comes up, see what colors you saw, see what texture, like all of these different things that you can just kind of tap into. And that's when you really tap into, is when you shed all the shit, and then you just go, you know, to creating something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I just find it's so helpful and so cathartic. And I think it's fun just to play every single time with doing something new, whether it's watercolors, whether it's a poem, whether it's just coloring, scribbling, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to fit in between the lines, or it doesn't have to look like anything other than you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's called the ceremony of you, because everything you should be doing, from your body to the art to your mind, is just the creation of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that. It's not me. You do that. I'm not telling you how to move your body. I'm prompting maybe, but I'm also on the journey, you know. And it's also really cool to see, because although I am like holding space in that container, I'm just as much there on the journey as well, you know, and I'm feeling all the same feelings, and I'm going through the same experiences that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you play music and people really just look
Yeah.
forward and they just move based on the way they need to, like almost like ejecting this trauma in their body, right? There's no like dance moves.
There's no dance moves, but I will say I spend a really long time on the playlist to take you on a journey, you know, like, so we start, like, I really try to build the music out so you are on a magical journey, and you have this climax, and you have this come down, and you have all of these different senses and experiences. So I think it's really finding the frequency a freedom within your body, and also finding the frequency within the music so you can hear, like if you just close your eyes and like listen to different sounds and let that move you,
Yeah.
then you're kind of creating your own art through your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're creating your own art just by being in stillness and just being in a meditative state. Like, what are those thoughts? Who is that? You know, that like you have to ask yourself these questions, because it's you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when that mind comes in where you just are going to suffering and you're like, oh, this happened to me today, blah, blah, all of these things. But who is that talking? You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
when you're like, oh yeah, who, then you're like, okay, then I can control it. And then you start to kind of work with that as a practice. And so we also use our voices. We also like sing in ceremony, and we do all of these different things that we really, I feel like sometimes don't have access to or don't really do on the regular. Like you probably couldn't scream to the top of your lungs in your apartment.
Mm-hmm.
You probably couldn't, you know, stomp and scream and be animalistic. No, because your neighbors would be like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? But that is the container, and that is the space that we allow that. You know, you have permission to be exactly who you are and create art within your mind, body, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And all animals in nature have a trauma response of shaking their body off, except for
exactly.
humans.
We literally have 5 minutes where we're literally just shaking
Mm-hmm.
and frothing at the mouth, as we should.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're always told that, oh, that's crazy, or oh my God, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not. It's actually normal. We need to get back to that like animalistic, like woman who run with the wolves. Like that's who we are.
Yeah.
Right. But because of our conditioning and just life, this is, you know, we're told to be this way or this way. No, no, no. We are literally animals. Like literally scream, literally froth, literally crawl on the floor. Like there's one day where we're just literally crawling on the floor. Like be that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, I feel like when you really just go inward and you're not worried about your neighbor and you're not worried about what the next person is going to say, you're not even looking. I don't even look at people when I'm like holding, so I'm just like, I respect everyone's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's different. Everyone has a different experience. Some people are laughing, some people are crying, you know. And we also do a lot of group exercises where you're just staring in someone's eyes for 10 minutes, and you should let that be uncomfortable because it's not normal, but
Yeah.
it is. And when you actually stare at someone, like if I just stared at you for 10 minutes and we were just in silence, you want to look away, you want to like laugh, you want to, then you start to cry, and all these different emotions come up and you don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're looking at the eyes of someone else for that long, you're literally looking into their soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beautiful. And then you see yourself, and it's just a really beautiful, like reflective exercise, you know, that I think is really important to do for just human connection and human bonding, and just know that we all are one and we all are on the same level, and I accept you and I love you as my sister, as my friend, as everything, you know, and there's no reason not to.
Yeah. That's so important too, because one of the things that Resmaa Menakem says in the book is that trauma is triggered and it's like a reflexive movement, right? Your fight, flight, or freeze response comes in as a result of a response. So the more we can move slower and the more that we can be embodied and be present with our feelings is how we
Then
heal.
exactly, and then you don't, then you don't even like react as much, I feel like perfect example, I was actually at Dwayne Reed yesterday, and you know how you have to like press the thing to get the toothpaste, right? And someone like comes over, and then he comes over and I was like, thank you so much, and he goes, aisle 8, there's a comb. And I was like, what? He goes, aisle 8, there's a comb for your hair. And I just looked at him and I was like, I literally
What?
just, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just looked at him and he was like, it was a joke. And I was like, yeah, all good, all good.
Wow.
If that was me 5 years ago, girl, I would have turned up. But I'm just like, it's not my thing. That's his thing. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And all I can do is just be like, God bless you, and I love you. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need for me to get angry, because that's only going to upset me. That's only going to trigger something in my body. And
Mhm.
I was just like, all right. I mean, I definitely paused for a minute and I was like, oh, okay. But then I just like let it go. I just like took a deep breath and I was like, I'm good.
You know, sometimes when those microaggressions, I mean, in this case, it was not even micro, it was like overt. When those things happen, sometimes I don't even have a chance to react because I'm so shocked by the audacity of some things that come out of people's mouths. I'm just like, did that just happen?
Exactly. Exactly. But then I'm just like, that's his own stuff. That's his own thing that he needs to deal with. It actually has nothing to do with me. Nothing. And then when you realize that, you're just like, doesn't touch you anymore. Those kinds of things that might have upset you, and I'm not saying it was okay by any means, but I can control whether I allow it to affect me or not. And I just checked out with him. He was the guy that and I just graciously left. Like because I would have been upset if I would have reacted, and it would have ignited, when you get upset and that feel, like you can feel it in your body immediately. It's like that fight or flight reactive, and if you kind of just breathe through it and you're like, I'm good. I don't even need to waste my time
Yeah.
or energy.
What I tell my clients too is that we need to be informed of our own trauma and the trauma of others, obviously, so that we could self regulate our nervous systems, because that when we can do that, we can truly manifest and co-create the life that we want to live. So for you, when you were going on that journey and you realized that, I had to do this kind of work, accept what is and what has happened, because I also want to listen to the signs and synchronicities. Because when
Yeah.
you're living in trauma, you can't listen to the signs and synchronicities all the time. So how were you able to come to that realization? What was your awakening? And I put that in quotes,
Yeah.
awakening moment.
I would say my awakening, I feel like I always knew like there was something else there. Like
Mhm.
I always knew. And I think my awakening moment was just when I read those words in that book, and I just started to like move, and it honestly just came, like if I just try and think about it now and like kind of looking back at all the synchronicities, even like wanting to get out of my job for so long, and like the timing that it happened just recently. Like I wasn't ready a year ago, and I look back on all those times, and I think every day has been a new awakening for me, to be honest. Like every single day there's something that I'll remember and I'll catch, and I'm like, oh, like that happened because of the, and like you start to see the
Mhm.
path. And I feel like the more you start to see how the path is already written and how synchronized things are,
Mhm.
then is when you can step up more into it. And
Yeah.
that's when you become so like, I feel like aware of things, and then you really start to watch what you think, because if you think negatively, then you'll have a negative outcome. And you watch what you speak about people, because what you speak about people will intrinsically come back to you in some way. And so when you realize this like karmic cycle of things, and you really realize what's happened to you and how you've gotten to where you are now, you're like, whoa, like it's literally like, whoa, because it's literally up to you.
Yeah.
Really cool. It's cool because you can just play with it. Like you can put things negatively out into the world and see what's going to happen. Like
Mhm.
it's like you can literally test and play with it, and you can be positive every day, even when things, I'm not saying be positive all the time, but like if you have the choice, I rather just be positive. But our brain always just wants to go to the suffering, because the suffering is the easiest thing. We want to suffer. We want to be in that state of,
Yes.
if, oh my God, I'm this or I'm that. And I'm not saying that those feelings aren't real, but what I'm saying is like our brain chemistry prefers to go to suffering than it
Mhm.
does happiness. It's
Yes.
just how we're made up,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. And I just feel like every single day is a new awakening and a new synchronicity. And if you just continue to open yourself and just like look around, you're like, wow, I'm really living in like paradise, which can be. It
Mhm.
can be your paradise if you want it to be. And it's not every day, but play with that idea, you know?
Yeah, I love what you just said, like all of that, because as somebody who is an activist and a healer, and somebody who wants to create a new world not based on old toxic paradigms, I do try to find this balance of like making people aware of the issues, but not feeding into the doom scrolling and like the negativity and the anger, but also having calls to action and how we can alchemize those feelings and helping people to be more optimistic for the future. And so there's this like, I feel like for most there's like an intersection of spiritual wellness,
Yeah.
activism, liberation movements that all like work together. And
Yeah.
so, um, even now, what's going on with the world right now and doing decolonial work, it's like this is happening, but also we can create a new world.
Oh my gosh.
Spirit said exactly.
Just like that. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
That would happen. No, but I totally agree with you. And I think it's just even going when we think about what we even put up on social media, like how that also translates into the world and what people are seeing. It's like the same thing you were saying just about scrolling and just ingesting all of this information, but we're not even aware of like the information that we're ingesting.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And because it's just become such a normal thing just to kind of just like go and scroll, and that you're not even realize like you're just feeding. And we need to be mindful of every single thing that we do.
Hmm.
We need to be mindful of our energy, how we spend our time, what we spend our time doing. And then you can really co-create with the universe what you want. You listen, I'm obsessed with Abraham Hicks, by the way.
Hmm. Yeah, I went to their event
Stop.
like right before the panorama with my
Oh
mom,
my God.
and my mom was like, "What's happening?"
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like you can really truly co-create with the universe if you want to.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that's fun.
I 100% believe that. And I really believe that, yeah, we were born into a family, we were born into an ancestral lineage, and we were born with certain things that we have no control over. And we also have our free will and the ability to co-create something different. And
Yeah,
most of the times, it's going to be something different from the lineage and the people that we came from because we're at this time in history.
exactly. Totally.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to share more about?
I really also, I think a really important thing that like what TherapArt does is, so we work with another amazing non-for-profit that you'll have to look at. It's Young New Yorkers. And so the
Mhm.
Young New Yorkers, it's a court mandated diversion program. So instead of kids going to jail, they get sentenced to a Young New Yorkers program. And then once they go through the program, their charges actually get dropped. And before COVID, what we were doing is we were actually building installations within the courtroom. And so all the judges that were going to sentence them and the cops that had arrested them actually come and participate in this like beautiful art healing exhibition. So
Wow.
I've been, Young New Yorkers is literally like the most special organization to me. And yeah, I think that my last little bit is just like give back as much as you can and just never give up on yourself and really never give up on your dreams, because you just never know what the universe has in store for you. That's it.
Yes.
That's my last tip. It's so you just never know.
You just never know.
So be the best person that you can be every day and fight through your shit, and don't like talk about it and be honest and be open and be upfront and be afraid and have fear, because fear is the thing that will push you to your destiny. Like fear will do that. And look at fear as an excitement, and be with your family and talk about your trauma. And like, what else? You have nothing else to do other than to do that. So I just say believe in yourself and really just never give up, because the universe is literally just like waiting for you to step in.
Yes.
That was it.
I'm like, I don't even need to say anything. I feel like that's the most beautiful way to end this chat. And I will obviously link everything in the show notes and how you can participate and how you can take one of these movement. Um,
Yes.
I wouldn't even say they're classes. It's just like,
Oh, it's not even a class. It's
yeah,
just like I just call it like a bit of
session.
a, yeah, it's just like a ceremonial workshop, whatever. I don't even want to call it, it's not even a workshop. It's just like, come up if you want to like get to know you better.
Yes.
That's what I
Beautiful.
would say. So hopefully we'll launch online soon. And yeah, I'm just really excited to continue to like grow and see and push myself and know that nothing I feel like will also ever be perfect, but it's perfect, I think, if you like put in the work and you can just believe in that, you know?
Yes. Thank you so much, Ash.
Thank you. I'm so excited.